Okay, well, welcome to Back to School Night for the AP Statistics class. This is me, Arnold Kling. I'm not on the webcam. I could have done that conceivably, but I'm casually dressed, so I decided I'd pass, and you'll have to come to the actual Back to School Night to see what I look like. Okay, so I want to go over some of the things that you would typically go over at a Back to School Night, starting with the course objectives. So, course objectives. For AP Statistics, the main categories are data description, learning how to work with data, um, probability modeling, learning how to apply the laws of probability. You learn how to what's called experimental design, which includes lots of jargon and simple rules, but also includes something I'll talk about later called situational judgment. And finally, you learn the rules of statistical inference, things like confidence intervals and hypothesis tests and so on. So one of my pet analogies is between a cop learning how to use a gun and a statistician or student learning the basic concepts of statistics. And the parallel I want to draw is that there's the issue of how to fire and versus the issue of when to fire. So all of the basic concepts that we go over in statistics, all of the things like type 1 and type 2 error and confidence level and confidence interval and normal distribution and all this conceptual information is I would put into the how to fire a gun category. But if you have a cop who knows how to fire a gun but doesn't have good situational judgment about when to fire a gun, that cop is actually dangerous, maybe more dangerous than if they hadn't learned how to fire a gun. And the same holds true in statistics. And so there's an interesting balance that you have to try to give in teaching, and a question of how much situational judgment you can really teach in a first-year statistics class. You're sort of afraid that if you don't teach it, you've made the person dangerous, but it's actually very hard to include it given that you're just trying to get the basic concepts down. So the textbook that we use actually has a lot of situational judgment stuff in it, probably more than I'm going to use, because I just think it's difficult enough in a first-year statistics class to get the basic concepts down. But there's no question that situational judgment, the question of when to fire the gun, is very important, and in the ongoing careers of your students, they will have to pick that up even more as they move along. Another thing I'll say about course objectives is I like to have a long-term objective. I'd like to feel that the students will look back years from now and feel like they remember something about this course. I'm not just focused on getting them through one test at a time. I'd like to feel that I'm having a long-term impact. And you don't have that with every student, but that's really my goal, to have that as much as possible. Okay, so let me move on to the next topic here, which is my background. And very briefly, I have a PhD in economics from MIT, so I've had plenty of statistics courses. I went to work at the Federal Reserve Board after that, and then I worked for a place that has subsequently become famous, but wasn't as famous when I was there, a place called Freddie Mac. And I applied a lot of statistical methodology, and especially simulations, in doing when I was at Freddie Mac. And then since then I've been doing since then I became an entrepreneur. I started an internet business that was and that was mildly successful. And since then I have been doing teaching and writing, including 10 years teaching here. Okay, let me move next to grading and expectations. Grading, not my favorite duty. I think it's probably not the favorite duty of any teacher, but you have to do it well and rigorously. I grade approximately 40% on tests, approximately 30% on homework, and approximately 30% on other. Other could be including the final exam or the midterm when we have that, but mostly includes just conduct in class, what I call team focus. Students can either help each other or hurt each other in this process, and some of it is just emotional. If everyone's kind of grumpy and pessimistic, then kind of a whole class gets affected by that. Whereas if you have at least a few students who are optimistic, who clearly enjoy learning and encourage others to learn, then the whole class can go well. So that team focus score often tends to be either very high and high for almost everyone in the class, or very low and low for almost everyone in the class. It's almost like a grade of the class, of the entire class's kind of emotional makeup. It's a weird thing, but it is a big factor in how well the class goes, and so I want to put it into the grading. And the expectations include students sticking it out through the AP. Now it's very difficult with seniors to get them to do that. There's always a tremendous pushback of, by the time you get to February, March, I don't think I really want to take the AP. I think it's very important. It's important to me to get the outside feedback that comes from the scores on the AP. And I think it's important for students to feel that internal pressure of doing well on the AP so that they really get the most out of the course. So that's a big part of the expectations. And then finally, my final topic is this year I'm doing a lot of the teaching as I'm conducting this back to school night by video. And so we can ask, why are we doing that? Because there are some obvious cons. One con is it's hard to ask a question of a video. Another con is it's very hard when it's impossible when I issue a video to be monitoring whether the students are really paying attention during a video. Whereas if I'm giving a lecture live, I can have an idea of whether they're paying attention, whether they're following, and so on. So those cons are there, but there are a number of pros. And one thing I would say, remember, I'm still here. I mean, this is not, I haven't just mailed in the video. I'm still in class every day that the class meets, and then I'm available for questions and so on. And what I'd like to do is what Salman Khan of the Khan Academy, which is an inspiration for a lot of this stuff, and he's really made the news in a lot of areas this year. What Khan talks about is flipping the classroom, where the lectures people listen to on their own, not as a group in class, and where when they get together in class with the teacher is providing more personal one-on-one feedback and more closer coaching and feedback. And that's what I'd like to do, use the class time to have the students do what traditionally was homework, that is work problems, and then have me quickly give feedback on how well they're doing on those. And then at home, or perhaps during other periods in school, they can watch these videos. So let me talk a little about what I see as some of the pros of this thing, and let me try to remember what they were. Okay, so the pros include that you can rewatch the video. You can also, you can look at other videos. You can find similar videos. You see, what will happen, let's say I put up a video on, what was this? It was on the multiplication rule for independent events. And YouTube says, well, there are a bunch of other things that seem to be out the multiplication rule for independent events. Look at these. They all, this one probably includes that as keywords. So multiplication rule for independent events. So if my lecture doesn't come through, maybe they can find another one. Maybe they can find an even better lecture. So that's a pro. A big pro is what I would call schedule smoothing. We have a very bumpy schedule. Even at best of times, we're scheduled 4 days a week here for this class, not meeting on Fridays. And at worst of times, people miss classes for a variety of reasons. There are days off, there are field trips, students get sick. Parents take students out of school to take longer-term trips. So all sorts of things can happen with the schedule. And this having these videos allows you to smooth it. They can watch more when they have more time, or when they miss a class, or when they go away, or getting ready to go away for a trip. Maybe even when they're on a trip they can watch because it's on the internet. So that schedule smoothing, I think, is a big advantage. Let me see if there's any other advantages I wanted to. Okay, the other big advantage I wanted to talk about is playing with the future. That is, you can actually, I think that this phenomenon of trying to reconfigure education and take advantage of technology is really close to a tipping point. You know, several years ago, about 4 years ago maybe, Amazon introduced their Kindle reader, and there had been other attempts at electronic readers. But now electronic reading really has taken off. And books are now, I think Amazon is selling more for their Kindle reader than they are actual books. And I think we're approaching that kind of tipping point in education, and I think it's good for me to try to be a part of it, and I think it'll be good for your students to try to be a part of it, recognizing that it's not going to be perfect, not everything is going to work better than what we had before. But I think the experiment is worth trying. And that's it. Thanks.